Hello, welcome back to the L1 show. Today is November 2nd, and we're doing business and security links for you to share with your friends.
Business news today. I hope you have alcohol in your coffee because it's bleak.
I've begun subcategorizing to make easier sorts, and my new favorite subcategory,
Collapse.
financial collapse.
It was just collapse on mine, and I was like, oh, we're not going to talk about biodiversity collapse in here?
No, it's just financial
Just
collapse.
financial.
For now.
Google profits plummet 27% in Q3 2022 earnings report. A lot of people are going to be quiet fired.
Yeah, they've, well, of course, we already saw a preview of this when they cut all the various programs last week. They knew what we did not yet know, although many people suspected, but it was worse than a lot of people suspected as well.
I mean, engagement challenge, but are we the only ones that see that basic software user experience stuff is failing catastrophically? Every new version is worse than the old version, and they push us to new products that only have 70% of the features of the old thing, and it's half baked and it doesn't make any sense.
And that's fine as long as that economic engine is churning and people are making a lot of money and they're happy and they're willing to just throw it away on nonsense. But that's what times are ending. We've entered into a new phase. That's not going to work anymore.
I don't know. I really, I've got that old KitchenAid food processor that I did this is before YouTube, but I restored it. There's a kit you can buy, and that's been like the best thing ever. We need that for everything.
You mean not stuff that's just cheap plastic crap designed to break after a year? Who could have thought?
How do you apply the KitchenAid principles to cloud storage?
You open source the design, I guess.
That is where they got killed.
Yeah.
Google Cloud was a big money loss. Big money loss.
They'll probably start charging for that, right?
And there's a lot of people using things like Nextcloud and that sort of thing because Google charges you. In the beginning, it was, oh, you get a terabyte of space. This is a pretty good deal. But the price of space has gone down so dramatically that it doesn't cost that anymore. You can just do your own Nextcloud for a tiny fraction of the cost of what they'll charge you.
And speaking of storage, there is a good time to buy storage. It's now. How do we know this? Because the storage companies are not having a good time.
Seagate to cut 3,000 jobs amid poor quarter, charges of export violations. So apparently they sent some hard drives somewhere they shouldn't.
Some of those sanctioned countries. Oops, shouldn't do that. There was a glimmer of good news in this article. There's going to be a 30 terabyte hard drive from Seagate.
It's still only going to be 200 megabytes per second. So it's going to take about 30 hours to fill it up or 30 hours to fully restore an image after restoring for backup.
But all that storage.
That's good for the apocalypse. It's sort of bad if you need to load and unload the drive quickly.
And when, Google, we know that their business model is not what it once was. They are not the industry leader that they were. They're not really offering anything all that amazing. But Amazon, I know how many people are using Amazon. How is this happening?
Amazon stock sinks 13% on weak fourth quarter guidance. This is after single-handedly crushing Main Street America during the global situation that we all faced. All those small businesses are gone. They're not coming back. And even now, Amazon can't squeeze enough profit out of the relatively pedestrian thing that remains in order to maintain their growth trajectory.
I saw advertising still grew, I think, in this article is what they said.
Well, that wasn't one of their big things until recently.
Yeah.
So that kind of makes sense. And we also know the problems they're having with their labor situation. I mean, there are going to be more Amazon unions, and they already can't hire enough workers.
It turns out crushing and spitting out workers was bad for business long term.
You should let people pee. That's the lesson you take away from this. When people need to pee, you have to let them. It only leads to bad things if you don't.
No, let's see if we can extract just a little bit more profit. Just for one more quarter, bro.
I don't think people are really have much of a problem with Main Street going away, but what has been lost is that the pee breaks, really.
Well,
more than that.
No, yeah, when you lose like the little businesses and stuff, you lose local knowledge. Like you don't know how to repair things anymore. And it's a big loss.
the garbage products.
Yeah.
It's always a crapshoot of what am I going to get from this?
It's easy to experience too. Like you can go to Lowe's and ask a question like, is this the appropriate kind of glue for this plumbing pipe? Or I've got concrete board to attach to the wall. What type of screw do I use? They have no idea. Whereas if you go somewhere like Ace Hardware, which is
Sometimes like a little pocket dimension, depending on the one you go to, but
yeah, there's probably an old person there that knows what's going on.
Ace Hardware is the only place to buy central air filters.
Yeah, because they know what they're doing.
Well, it's because they got the generic ones that are like $3.
the one in the town near me, I went in there recently to pick some stuff up for canning, and like I went in there and they had a fireplace with deer heads over it. Like a functional fireplace in the middle of just like a little tiny strip mall store.
A lot of their customers are going to have that, right? Why not?
It was strange, but it was like that thing though. It was all old men working it. Like they were like, "What do you need?" And I was like, "Oh, I'm looking for canning jars." And he was like, "This aisle." He knew exactly where. He didn't even have to look.
I bet, and I don't have any hard facts to back this up, but I bet a very, very low percentage of Ace Hardware associates trade in crypto.
Freeway, a crypto platform that promised 43% returns, has halted withdrawals. No! Did we have news like this last week? It's been like 3 months of just...
Every week, a new crypto trading platform halts withdrawal.
This one was the one that was backed by the dollar or gold or something, wasn't it?
No, they had some crazy promises. They told you were going to get 43% whether the market went up or down.
Who reads that and is like, "Nah, that sounds legit."
A lot of people, apparently. Enough people to make them rich.
I mean, the Fed's telling me I'm going to get 10% on a bond that, whether the market goes up or down.
Sadly, I have a lot more faith that the Federal Reserve will still be here at the end of that
Yeah,
10
that's
years than I do about Freeway. I don't know if that's good or bad. Moving on to some hardware news. Apple has, I guess, decided that people want really giant tablets.
Apple is working on a 16-inch iPad, further blurring the line with laptops.
I might be the only use case where I was like, "Yeah, I would take a larger iPad."
How big would you go?
I don't know. 16 inches is pretty good size. That'd be great for illustrations, though. But considering the pencil's not always compatible, the latest version of it.
I get the glass, it probably gets a little squishy, though. That might not be great.
Yeah.
They did that problem with iPhones where they would bend easily
Yeah.
and stay bent. Wonder if you get that same kind of issue. Of course, are they going to? It's funny because Apple is clearly not making the bet on the rollable displays.
Yeah.
'Cause that's what Samsung.
The scroll.
Yeah. Apple's just like, no, we're gonna make a big one.
Like for like illustrators and stuff, I could see that use case. I don't know if it would have much of a niche in like normal people.
Would you carry it though?
If I had a case for it, maybe.
I think that'd be a really annoying thing to have.
Yeah. It'd probably be one of those things where you keep it at your desk most of the time when you're working. You wouldn't carry it around like to a coffee shop.
What about if you're just out in nature doing nature?
Nature sketches?
Yeah.
No, you stay inside at your desk, close that window.
That's funny because like you're either all outdoor or all indoor.
Yeah. I don't do that. I don't let the cold air out.
It's like, don't open a window, but we can go sit outside if you want. Another thing that Apple is doing that we learned about last week, and they have now confirmed for sure, is USB-C cables. Are they doing it because they think it's a good thing to have a standard? No, not at all.
Apple confirms the iPhone is getting USB-C. Greg Joswiak, hopefully I say that right, says, well, obviously we have to comply. I've read the specs for the USB-C port. It's slower. It's slower than the Lightning port. Not because Lightning is better, but because Apple is petulant.
Because they purposely engineered it to be slower.
Yeah. Thanks, Apple.
Another thing that they are, for sure they're petulant, but another thing they are, and man, I don't know if which one is actually more than the other, they are litigious. They love to sue people, and they get sued a lot.
Apple lawsuits say health monitoring company Masimo copied Apple Watch.
Didn't Apple Watch kind of copy the Fitbit?
In fact, there is already a lawsuit from Masimo against Apple for the exact same thing.
Apple's going to do the reverse
Reverse
touchpad.
Uno.
This is the Spider-Man.
There was a company, they stole the touchpad design and haptics from Synaptics, I think, and then they ended up buying them. Like they just make it all go away. They were just like, all right,
We'll
gonna
just give you
buy
money. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like buy them out, boys.
And somehow those kind of things just keep going through.
I heard that that like Garmin, their smartwatches, that the reason that they have an electrocardiogram sensor built into them, like the Apple Watch, but the reason it's not on is because they're worried about Apple suing them.
Oh.
I don't know if that's true or not.
Such good pro-consumer policies that we have.
Yeah.
And the other big story this week, not quite as big as Mr. Musk, but also
Connector gate.
It really, really does bring out the worst kind of commenters for sure.
NVIDIA's RTX 4090 power draw may be too much for its power connector to handle. So Ars Technica has an article. Igor's lab did a bunch of research on this. People are taking theirs apart. Some people may have cables that are designed for crimping that have actually been soldered, and that can cause heating and melting and some other issues. And there's a lot of people that have posted pictures on social media of their connectors melting. Under normal operation, the 4090 is going to use like 450 watts. You can use the power slider to get it up to like 600 watts. Supposedly, this connector is rated for 800 watts, but there's a lot of people with a lot of melted connectors on social media.
They're just trying to keep you warm for the winter.
Now,
and you're not using as much electricity that way.
As many posts as there have been, it could still be a 1 in 1,000 failure rate that we don't know.
But it looked like most of the people who had the failures, and I blame the case makers, those stupid tiny cases.
Yeah.
Because you got to smush those connector cables.
Well, your case is the Lee and Lee. That is not a tiny case. That's actually wider than most cases.
But you still have to smush.
And you still have to smush, yeah.
Why are we like this? Microsoft is really investing in the whole ARM thing. Now, they did release that ARM Surface. That got poor reviews.
It's because it was crappy.
Well, maybe they're hoping this will improve that.
Microsoft's Project Volterra becomes an ARM-powered mini PC with 32 gigs of RAM. Windows Dev Kit 2023 is dramatically more powerful than previous efforts. They're selling these. I thought about trying to get my hands on one of these so we could do some videos and stuff, but ultimately I just didn't care. But it's ARM, and so Microsoft wants people to use ARM to see how it goes, to maybe offer a better user experience, because theoretically this is going to be one way that they can have an Apple-like experience in terms of battery life and speed and productivity. And they could give you a reasonable Microsoft Office experience and a browsing experience on an ARM platform versus x86. And a lot of problems go away.
They figured out how to get their customers to test their software. Why not get their customers to develop their software? And we have a new world record.
The Intel Core i9-13900K blasts off to 8.8 gigahertz, breaking a world record. Raptor Lake officially dethrones the AMD FX, which was, what, 8.2 gigahertz? Something like that.
Who cares? It's so unrealistic.
Not gonna be daily driving 8.8 gigahertz.
And this was interesting. When I first saw the headline, I was like, oh, battery technology. Yeah. Oh, you got some room temperature fusion? But no, that makes sense how this works. I don't know if there's any, like, how long you think it would take us to fold this into our current infrastructure?
There are some things that are like this already in place, just not to this extent for the undersea cables.
But it is incredible.
Chip can transmit all of the internet's traffic every second. Splitting data into a spectrum of color packets has enabled single computer chip to transmit a record 1.84 petabits of data per second via a fiber optic cable. So it turns out that with a lot of the undersea cables, instead of putting down another undersea cable, we just mux more light into the same cable. And as long as it's different wavelengths, they don't really interfere with one another. So we can pack a lot of stuff on one fiber cable. Well, this is doing it all on one chip, which is nice.
The hard thing is going to be like, how do you handle that much data on each end of it? Like, sure, we can transmit it.
You got to split it back out into more and more and more parallel connections.
But I'm saying, like, that's going to be the hard part. That's what we have to build.
Well, yeah. We can handle 400 gigabit now pretty easily. So
That's a far cry from 400 gigabit. And maybe, of course, you won't be using any fiber optics to do this, but you might still benefit from that if we get better download
I
speeds.
thought of van life for this.
Yeah.
Yeah, wow.
That's who they're aiming for.
Any kind of life, right? Truckers, for sure. It's kind of a high price, I think, for a trucker, but I bet they'll pay it.
SpaceX's Starlink will expand internet service to moving RVs, trucks, and cars for $135 a month. Woo! You can listen to all the podcasts you want in your truck.
I'd say, yeah, that'd be more than worth it, especially if you were full-time traveling.
This will be great when we're traveling in our retirement from Amazon warehouse to Amazon warehouse. You know?
Oh, I thought you were just gonna say like in the horrible wasteland after.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
A la Mad Max, we're traveling.
I mean, it'll be a wasteland of consumerism, not a wasteland of like nuclear waste or anything like that.
And we're 50-50 on which way it could go right now.
We'll have a nice little online forum for all the Starlink people where we can trade medications because none of us can actually afford all the medication we need.
But it's all very hush hush because if someone finds out you're trading medication, you go to the other factory.
Especially because Amazon will control healthcare at that point. Yeah. This is interesting. TSMC, of course, has this kind of a shield where they know that we know that if anything bad happens to them, that we're going to have a real hard time with our chips. So that's kind of what they're gently reminding us here.
TSMC says efforts to rebuild the U.S. semiconductor industry are doomed to fail.
That's why they're investing so much money in building them here in the U.S.
Yeah. So they figure if we build our own stuff, then all of a sudden we won't be as motivated to protect them.
There was a part of the quote of what they were saying that almost sounded a little self-deprecating, which was, it was something along the lines, my takeaway was they were talking about Intel, but it was, it's like, hey, if we, humble little TSMC, can get out ahead of Intel, it's already been over for like 10 years because it takes so long to develop all of this stuff. And it's like, not only do you not have the infrastructure and manufacturing, you also don't have the higher education programs. You don't have the expertise. You don't have a visa program because people come to the U.S. and learn, and then you make them go home. Why don't you just keep them?
All that might be true, but I mean, it doesn't mean that we don't need to start.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and they're still investing money, even though they say there's no future in it. So it seems kind of like a...
No, well, they're saying there's no future in us doing it. Mm. They believe very much there's a future in them doing it.
Yeah, they're going to have to send their people over here, and then, that's going to be a thing. Which is fine. That might be good. We need a lot more of those kind of companies. I mean, can you imagine if we had a $1 trillion industry like that instead of, Meta and advertising?
What's funny is our big industry, our big export, we're sending to them right now.
Yeah.
Which is rockets.
I was going to say culture too. Like movies and TV shows and pop culture stuff.
If things get really serious crunch time, though, none of that matters.
And if things get really serious crunch time, you think any of those fabs are going to survive?
No.
So, I mean, they're kind of screwed either way. Touch screens in cars are stupid. We've learned that over and over. And Elon Musk has given us the best example ever. Plenty of people have reviewed that horrible UI. They've said it's horrible, and Volkswagen said, we want that.
After complaints, Volkswagen will ditch capacitive steering wheel controls. Recent Volkswagen ship of capacitive multifunction steering wheels, and they're bad. I get the impression this wasn't a touch screen so much as it's just a piece of touch-sensitive plastic, which is even worse.
Yeah, so you can't feel where you're actually touching.
There's just an LED under there. Yeah. It's not a screen. Yeah. And it's just... But they have the haptics in it, like the iPhone. But you're spending money to simulate something that would cost you 5 cents. And be better.
We got a new blender recently, and it's a Vitamix blender, so it was a little more expensive, but it has all the like really nice like dials and clicky buttons. And
see, my air fryer is the opposite. It's all this kind of garbage.
Yeah.
And my hands are all greasy, and I'm just like stepping at it. And I hate it.
I think about that time you described your dad using an iPad and he couldn't get it to unlock, and you said he was just pawing at the screen. I think about that a lot when I use touch screens.
He's actually kind of learned how to use the iPhone a little bit, but getting streaming apps installed on the Fire TV is still
beyond him. Yeah.
I haven't been able to do that yet. Even with the microphone, like Dad, just tell it to install Netflix. No success.
Can't do it. Maybe he's got the TV turned up so loud it can't hear him.
When they call me, it is just at max volume in the back. And if I ever call them out on it, they're like, we don't watch a lot of TV.
They just have it on all the time. Yeah.
Well, this is interesting because I can't help but think back to the YouTube adpocalypse. Remember the adpocalypse?
Too well.
In that instance, it was the other direction.
Yeah.
The advertisers didn't like the content. And now the content creators don't like the advertisers.
Apple developers are frustrated with gambling ads appearing across the App Store. It turns out Apple's in the business of selling ads now. They're taking over. That part of their business is doing really well because they control the ecosystem. And what are you going to do about it? Well, it turns out the gambling ads are also showing up on apps meant to help with gambling addiction. recovery.
Oh,
Not a good look.
Isn't it wild that gambling is so popular during economic downturns?
Yeah.
Everybody thinks the solution is, I'll just gamble. I'll win money and then everything will be okay. Not a good tactic. Don't do it. And the Google Apple messaging fight is getting worse. And they, they're lobbing bombs of inconvenience at one another, and we're here in the middle taking shrapnel. It only gets worse for the user.
Google is giving Apple a dose of its own medicine. iPhone users will now get annoying messages that an Android user reacted to their text. Because, of course, the blue bubble messaging system behaves differently than the green bubble messaging system.
Apple phones do, or when it's someone who's using an Apple reacts to your stuff, it'll send you a message in Android as well, and it's very annoying.
Thumbs up are annoying as it is.
Yeah.
To get a separate message for the thumbs up, oh my god. Also, I didn't include the article, I think it was last week, but apparently they interviewed young people to find out what the emojis are that make you seem old. Thumbs up is the number one old emoji.
I can see that.
Poop, heart, toothy grin. I don't know what you
I don't know
actually call
what that
that
is.
one. But they had like a whole thing about if you use these, you're old.
My favorite one is eyes. Like with just the eyes.
This might have been in there.
Is that an old one? I
Might
like
have been,
eyes.
yeah. And Apple has given us a new batch of operating systems.
The iPadOS 16 and macOS Ventura arrive on October 24th. The system preferences thing in Ventura is a giant steaming pile of garbage. And once again, people that have to use Macs remotely are going to suffer. Because Apple doesn't care.
Well, I was going to say as they should, but then sometimes I have to do that.
Yeah. And then you have to suffer.
Because you people insist on using it and we have to test for it. Stop.
It's such garbage.
You're causing suffering.
It's so bad.
Well, this is a blast from the past and maybe a little bit of nostalgia. Although this was usually a harbinger of bad things. You usually broke this out when something was wrong and then it told you it was like, oh, you're going to have to sit through an RMA that's like 2 weeks. That sucks.
Minitest 86 is back. New version released after 9 years. And it's going to try to tell you which chip on which DIMM is bad. That's pretty cool.
9 years.
That'd be handy if you're Louis Rossmann and can actually replace the chip.
Well, it's also handy for, figuring out what's causing the blue screens.
Yeah.
And Microsoft they've created something that there's no new features here. They just fixed a little tiny part of their horrible UI and congratulated themselves for it.
I dropped my lid.
Your lid.
Microsoft's PC Manager is like CCleaner for your computer. It'll help you remove some crap. Okay.
Now, if you drop that lid in my house, you have like 10 seconds to
Before
get
the
it
cats
before
come
one of
run.
the cats comes running and just smashes it under the fridge.
Also, I always read it as CCleaner. It's a word I never had to say out
But
loud.
there's no third C.
I know, but I just read it that way.
CC Leaner.
Even better.
And we have another argument over third-party payments. And it's so hilarious that Spotify has actually had to apologize for how bad the user experience is in the app.
Spotify pulls audiobook purchases from iOS app after Apple blocks updates because Apple wants a cut.
We know it's not ideal. So it used to be that this page would give you a link to go buy the book, or maybe it would launch an email. They had some creative way to try to get around, like, oh, it's not a link. And Apple was like, no, you're not going to do that. So they've now prevented updates for the Spotify app until this is resolved.
Wow. You said you're not enjoying Spotify anymore, right? Or not as much.
It's okay. I mean, they're just adding all this useless garbage that I don't care about.
I just use it for music, so.
I think Apple and Spotify are both petulant, terrible, very act in self-interest kind of ways, but this is something the FTC should look into because, again, consumers suffer needlessly because they basically already control everything. Spotify for their part of the thing, and then Apple for their part of the thing. As a user, give me a way out.
Well, that's the last thing they want. I'm a little worried though that because these subscription services just keep creeping up and up in price.
Yeah.
And if they eventually do something that cannot tolerate, which Spotify could easily do that anytime, now I've got like 5-6 years of not collecting MP3s.
So that's how they get you.
Yeah. So
Because
now,
I'm in the same, because I never collected MP3s, but it was like that for TV shows. For the longest time, I had robots that were just collecting media, and then I sort of
Totally
stopped
legally.
that because, it's like I could just stream whatever I wanted. And now the prices have gone back up, and I've canceled everything, and now the robots are collecting things again. But there's a bit of a gap.
we're a couple of frogs, and at this point, we're sitting in heavy cream.
Maybe it'll get better, we say, as the heat gets cranked
I
again.
can't feel my legs anymore, but this is fine.
It's funny. There was another. I wanted to do a video, but I was not brave enough because I didn't think we would forget, or I didn't think we could get away with it. But Jeff Geerling did a video on ripping Blu-rays, and so if you want to go rip Blu-rays to your collection, you totally can do that.
We wouldn't tell you how, but it's totally possible.
You could probably buy like estate sale
Yeah,
Blu-ray, because I've seen several. Like you don't know what you're getting, but they'll sell you like 100 Blu-rays for $20. You can build quite a collection.
yeah, and and get it in a more convenient format by format shifting it.
Which is where they will crucify you.
There's enough of us we could codify that in law. Probably we just need to organize.
Well, Activision has done a form of format shifting. I guess you could call it that. It's a lie because they still pretend that they're selling you one format, but they are not.
Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2's disc is just 72 megabytes of nothing. If you want the latest Call of Duty on disc, get ready to download it. No matter what, it's going to be more than 100 gigabytes. That's a problem around here because a lot of people are still on DSL that's 6 megabit, which means that downloading that 100 gigabytes is going to take like 3 days.
And some people are on data caps.
Yeah.
That could be a tenth of your month. What if you have 2 PlayStations?
The ISP and the rural part of the state is 25 gigs a month for the old people plan.
I had a friend who was trying to download this the other day, and like he has a good internet plan and stuff, but he said he started it and it was like hours later before he
Well,
finally
on
got
day
it.
one, there's no way they're going to give you much
Yeah.
bandwidth for that because there's so many people are hitting it all at once.
Yeah, I don't think he even played it the night he started the download.
That's why you got to pre-order, right? That's how they get you. We announced a couple of weeks ago that Comcast was giving some huge speed increases, and that was like, wow, it's rare that they ever do anything for their customers, but it turns out there was a hook in that.
Comcast's new higher upload speeds require a $25 per month X-Fi complete add-on. 10 megabits becomes 100 megabit, but only if you're going to pay for the hardware rental.
And you have to use their hardware, which means they can sell the data on the back of that.
Miss Lena Khan, where are you? Where are you?
Now, they assure us that if you're using your own hardware, yeah, you will get the speed increases. When? They're not sure.
Lena Khan's probably on vacation till the end of the year, like everyone else.
Such anti-consumer nonsense.
And, this is what I'm talking about, right? They just keep... Now, of course, we are suffering from catastrophic inflation, but something tells me that Apple could still make money without doing this.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
See that's because it's not a real good. It's like has the cost of the servers that are already a sunk cost gone up? No, maybe the service fees, but that's a tiny fraction of the cost of providing the service.
And the creators are more desperate than ever.
Yes.
So you don't necessarily have to pay more for the content to get it. Yeah, this is just horrible.
Apple raises prices on Apple Music, Apple TV Plus, and Apple One. Just think, if you hadn't rented the music, if you just bought it,
You still have it.
you wouldn't be facing this issue.
What's Apple One even?
What if instead of buying it, oh no, we can't talk about that. What is it? Yeah, I don't know what Apple One is.
I thought maybe one of you guys would know.
Never
I
heard
thought
of
it was the subscription where you get a little bit of everything. It's like the news.
Ah,
and
it's like the Amazon Prime where you
Yeah.
get the whole. Gotcha. Yeah, that makes sense.
maybe not engagement challenge.
How did they not call that Plus?
Yeah, isn't the naming convention you put a plus at the end?
The 2-hour meeting was literally, we should call it Plus, and them saying, no, everybody else calls it Plus. We're Apple. We're different.
Level
Think
1
different,
text
remember?
plus.
We're level 1 minus.
The Level 1 Text
right.
Plus is on Patreon and Floatplane.
Or alternately, which I think is better, the cult of engagement.
That's more YouTube comments though. That's not really Patreon and Floatplane.
Really, I would think that they're engaging.
They're engaging. We need to do a podcast.
If
by the way.
if you give me free money, I'm going to assume that that's a positive.
That's
indicator.
positive engagement
I
for
think
you.
you're engaging positively. This now, when we looked at the Google story about in the economic collapse section, where Google just lost their shirts, they had all these big losers. They itemized all the different horrible things that they tried to do to squeeze more money out of YouTube. Turns out this one was the winner.
YouTube's latest revenue grab, a 27% price increase for family plans. After several failed revenue experiments, YouTube decides, well, we'll just charge more. Okay.
So they tried 10 ads per video.
Ugh.
People did not care for that. They tried, what was the other thing that
Charging for 4K.
Oh yeah, the 4K.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, people weren't into that. They were like, you know what? I'm fine with the regular video quality. But apparently, people with family plans are willing to suffer a little bit more.
A surprising number of our subscribers do have, and YouTube does give us some pretty good money from that, because it does break it down separately. So like, here's the money that you get from advertising. Here's the money that you got from people that are subscribers to YouTube that didn't see ads while watching your content. And it's a surprisingly large number.
I have a friend who pays for it, which surprised me. I was like, oh,
I used to have the YouTube Red thing until they put the bullet in the back of the head of Google Music.
yeah.
They always have to kill everything.
There's one for the analytics. Is just put that back and you could get all that revenue again.
Yeah, you forced me into the arms of Spotify, and in doing so, took me off of YouTube Red.
It really is crazy, like just how unusable the apps are. And it's not like there's a paid alternative. Like for that, it's like, can I pay $5 more and get that functionality back? No, it's not anything like that. That is a source of, like how they wreck their products unwittingly, constantly, and they have no idea. Because how would you do the analytics? How would you ever get that? Like a focus group is never going to get that. Analytics is never going to tell you that.
But it all comes back to, and of course, I'm not the first person to say this. This is not my brilliant interpretation, but it's because you're always chasing the next quarterly earnings.
Right.
Yeah.
There's no time to really take a long view of anything. Although in many ways, we are taking a big dump on Zuckerberg, who I think he's doing it incorrectly, but he is actually trying to do that.
Yeah,
Tried to
like
do the long
the
view.
next generation after Gen Z would probably be very impressionable for metaverse stuff.
We should do a video on that, because that could be a really nice clickbait headline. Like Zuckerberg's actually not doing something wrong.
Here's the question though, Krista. Would that generation still be ready for it if he weren't doing what he's doing now?
Yeah, I think so, because of the way video games are going.
Okay.
They're used to having to buy stuff in video games and then being really proud of what they bought. So
That's
imagine if
sad.
they could do their whole social media presence, buying things for their little mansion, their little person, and then they could see it everywhere.
I feel like we're kind of giving them a primer on how to boil the frogs here.
Yeah.
Let's not encourage
They're,
that.
Zuckerberg's just seeing the trend in video games and trying to bring it into social media.
I think for what Chris is saying though, like how you actually make that successful is to structure it so that there's like person-to-person connections. You get that social component.
Yeah.
And the company's there, but it's not inserting itself into the middle of everything, as is the case with all of the current metaverse approaches.
But that's all he knows.
Yes.
Yeah. And that might be, there's almost part of me that wonders if like that's him who's doing that, or if there's someone not higher up, but like there's pressure from other sources inside of Meta where it's like, no, we need to have advertising. We need to have this, that, and the other. So it's not like a focused thing.
Well, his shareholders are pressuring it.
Yeah.
We don't, Facebook doesn't need to own and run the company store where you buy all goods for the metaverse. They just need to supply the wood and let everybody else just sort of go to town.
Then you're letting whoever builds the headset do the tracking.
But ultimately, you control the wood.
But they don't see it like that. They're
Yeah.
like, no, we must track.
Yeah.
You know who else wants to track? everybody who's making your TVs these days. And it's a very cutthroat business, as we learned from Amazon.
Amazon says fear of Google putting off vendors from TV hardware partnership. This is, again, the canceling products. Part of that is Google changing the deal after the fact, a la Roku. And that is also Google just canceling products. It's like, hey, we're not going to do Android TV anymore. Remember Android TV? Remember all the money that Logitech invested in Android TV set-top boxes, which were not actually awful? And then they just didn't work one day? Yeah, a lot of people, a lot of these hardware companies are the same companies. They have a long memory.
But what's happening here is Amazon's going to them and they're like, hey, Fire TV. Why don't you make a Fire TV? We'll give you the OS. And they're like, we'd love to do that. We want to get in bed with Amazon. We really do. But we're already in bed with Google. They don't like that. I think they'll do bad things to us if we do that. So I'm sorry. We're going to have to turn you down.
It's so insane.
Neither are great choices, but I guess you should be able to choose one or the other.
You know what else you can DIY? Your own TV watching appliance.
A toaster.
I'm never, when I think to myself, I'm going to put a new TV in my home, I'm also thinking to myself, I'm going to have to buy a computer.
Yeah.
Because that's the only way to do it.
Yeah. We've reviewed some killer machines from Minis Forum that are tiny, low power machines. You could just slap right on the back of a TV and then boom, you've got something that can decode H.265 stutter free, a fast responsive user interface, and it's a couple $100.
Well, over in New Zealand, they have made a ruling which I can only imagine is going to be buried in appeals from now until the end of time.
New Zealand Uber drivers win their landmark case declaring them employees. That means benefits. Woo!
Uber pulling out of New Zealand. That'll be the next story next week.
I thought New Zealand was like a big sprawling and low per capita place. You think they get a lot?
There
of
are some big
Ubering?
towns and cities.
A lot of tourists.
Auckland, yeah.
Oh, that's probably true. Probably a lot of airport Ubering going on there. They should do an Uber for sheep. Schuber. The RIAA is always stirring up fear. You know, they're kind of like we're here at Halloween. Well, Halloween's over now, but it's like, oh, there's drugs in the candy. There's never drugs in the candy. They just have to keep you scared.
The RIAA has flagged artificial intelligence music mixer as emerging copyright threat. You should read this. This is really super interesting. But I've got some bad news for the copyright cartels. The ship has sailed on most of this. So
We've already got the laws.
expect that over the next year or two, in very short order, the level 1 prediction here, the copyright industry is really going to amp up this, oh my gosh, AI is going to empower stealing intellectual property. Because right now, under the law, the stuff that the artificial intelligence generates is not really copyrightable. But also, you can train an AI to do something in the style of, and under current copyright law, there's not really a lot that you can do about it. And because if you're an individual, like if Krista wants to draw something in the style of Disney, whatever, because neither one of us can do any sort of drawing, that's okay under copyright. Disney has litigated that in the past ad infinitum, and it is it's not gone well for Disney, which is, but they've been chipping away at copyright as a result of that forever. And now you could actually, if you like the Beatles, you could feed an AI all of the Beatles catalog and say, give me some music in the style of the Beatles. And right now it's not super competent, but someday soon, as in like a year or two, it will produce some reasonable, competent music in the style of the Beatles or in the style of whatever.
The interesting loophole here is we already have AI that's somewhat competent at pulling the voice out of a music track. So one of these companies says, we're going to do this for every instrument. We're going to let you remaster. You can put any song you want in here. We're going to strip all the individual instruments out and the voice and let you remaster it on your own. But because you did an AI with that, under the current law, all those master tracks that you pull out of that are free from copyright. And then you can mix them all back together. So yeah, they're definitely going to come for that.
Yeah.
Also, you said we couldn't draw at all. One of my favorite Eastern Kentucky jokes is when you ask somebody, it's like, oh, what do they do for a living? Oh, they're an artist. Oh, really? What kind of art do they do? They draw a check.
I thought we were going to go in the direction of like, they're a drawer, but like drawer.
Because because you can't say things correctly. Yeah, this is another thing that perhaps we as a group should collectively rise up against, because they really, the recording industry since the 70s, because they expected to control everything, they never counted on the internet. That's one of the reasons the copyright has maximized so much. Like if you wanted to independently produce a song, they could find something in it that sounds vaguely similar to something else and sue you and basically take your property. That's what the laws were designed to do. And there may be a tiny, tiny, tiny keyhole through which we can escape that hellscape. And I don't know. We should maybe fix that in copyright law. Make the keyhole a little bigger.
Or just have these people put to death.
That's what they would prefer, yes. But there was actually...
the copyright people.
Oh, yeah, that would work, yeah. There was a Stable Diffusion. There was somebody took the Stable Diffusion thing and fed all of the Disney movies to it. And then it said, and then somebody gave it a prompt like, design this character in the style of Disney, whatever. And oh my gosh, it really was.
Well, Disney tends to, at least recently especially, like they tend to same face quite a bit, especially with their female characters. Like the female characters don't look too dramatically different. So you feed 10 of them in and it's like, oh, here you go. Here's another one.
Yeah.
They probably focus group the most pleasing face.
Yeah.
And they just do slight iterations on that.
Which is insane, but it's sort of nuts that we're able to do that with AI. With the relative things are moving real fast with this image AI. Music AI is not far behind.
Well, Disney gets away with that because they have so much political power, and they've entrenched themselves so much into our system. Even when we catch them doing these horrible things, somehow we can't get rid of them. And it's nice to know that we're not alone in having that kind of situation.
Lee Jae-yong, Samsung appoints convicted heir to top job. Now, he can't, if he's convicted, he can't hold this job. It's not allowed. He was pardoned.
This feels like such like a flaunt of like, yeah, whatever. Yeah, well, I see that you guys have your little laws, but we're going to put him back anyway.
So he bribed one president, was convicted, did a little bit of time in jail. And then the next president came along and was like, nope, you're free. Oh, and that charge never happened.
You're pardoned.
Get back in there and earn some money.
Pardon me, sir? Why, yes.
You rascal.
If you're South Korean, how do you feel about that? I would be pretty mad.
Yeah, engagement challenge.
How do you feel about your government?
Not great. Not positive.
The same way. That's how
overwhelmingly negative feelings for the most part.
I did not get a chance to read this one. Krista,
I added this, really late. This is just an article about fake books on Amazon. So specifically about NFT books. So this guy was trying to learn more about NFTs, started picking up some books on Amazon. He would get halfway through them. And he said the first half like kind of explained it, but not real well. But then as you went through the book, it started pulling up totally different acronym definitions.
Books written by GPT-3.
Yeah. And they're being sold on Amazon.
Yeah. There's artwork that's being sold that's generated by AI.
Wait for your coin or token to go up in price by 50%. That's not good investment advice.
No, but I mean, it gets more and more bizarre as you read these, where it's like I said, NFT suddenly turns into not non-fungible token, but like some medical term, I think, at one point, and it's like clearly just sourced from another book.
I mean, how many projects have we done where it's like, okay, all the machinery's in place, now all you have to do is put your content in.
And they don't fucking do it. Yeah, that's basically what these are. And I wonder if it's almost like they're trying to make it seem more legitimate by flooding the marketplace with these sort of books.
Do you know who, is that LCAM or ICAM?
I have no idea. I found this article somewhere else, so this is probably just some random guy who happened to notice it.
I wonder if there's going to be felony passing off an AI's work as your own in the future because of this. Because how would you know?
I can see that.
Well, there's going to be so many popping up on Amazon too that like, is Amazon even going to ever be able to find all of them?
In a way, this is also a really egregious violation of the social contract when you say.
Yeah. You pay for a book about something and then, oh, just kidding. It's AI written.
Once again, everything our government does.
Mm-hmm. Egregious violation.
Everything Amazon does. Everything Google does. Facebook's entire existence. And I left this one to the end because this one just blew my mind. The time horizon for how quickly we move on to the next thing has gotten just alarmingly short.
Following a PR crisis, PayPal again updates its terms of service, hoping you won't notice. Yes, they put back the clause that says we can take $2,500 from you if we don't agree with you.
But I read I'm sorry, Christy.
I'll say, but bless their hearts, there's some intern at these not social media, but like journalism companies who has to like refresh that page all the time to write these articles.
But I read another thing where someone pointed out that the $2,500 fine was always there.
Yeah.
It was just the misinformation part.
Yeah.
So they didn't really put it back. They never really removed it. Yeah. And the way that it's worded, they could still do the misinformation thing if they really wanted to.
Yeah.
So I kind of want to cancel my PayPal. I do use it very rarely on sites where they only take PayPal.
Hashtag cancel culture.
Do they buy Venmo?
It's annoying, but I feel like I should at this point, right?
I don't ever really use PayPal.
I don't want to.
Yeah.
What's that noise?
There's something beeping in the far distance.
It sounds like it's outside, right?
Yeah, I think it's a truck.
And moving on to security, we have, you guessed it, hacks and leaks.
Thomson Reuters collected and leaked at least 3 terabytes of sensitive data. This is on cybernews.com.
It's not on Reuters.
It's paywall alternative.
One of the very few HackerOne things I submitted to Thomson Reuters, they never paid after confirming it was a security issue. Nothing to do with this, but I just thought I'd point that out.
Well, you wouldn't have got any bounty here because this was not a bug or...
It's a truck.
It was... It's the same thing every time, right? Misconfigured Elasticsearch.
Yeah.
I think Elasticsearch is probably the most common database breach.
Yeah.
Just simply don't know how to do it. Can't figure it out. Good job, Reuters.
This page didn't load.
Ooh.
Oh, it did load, but it crashed because the JavaScript ate all the memory.
And the New York Post it turned out not to be a hack.
It was an employee.
They updated this afterwards. They thought it was a hack. They reported it was a hack. Nope, just an angry employee.
New York Post says employee posted racist, violent, and sexist headlines targeting politicians. Mostly the blue ones.
It was they said some nasty stuff about AOC. I mean, look, there's a lot of stuff you can say about AOC about what she's done. You don't have to target her race and gender.
Also, doing this on your employer's website, probably not the best move.
It is interesting when celebrities or corporations hand their social media off to an underling.
Yeah.
And then that underling goes all crazy with it.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, they shouldn't have done that. No, you shouldn't have done that. You shouldn't have delegated.
Let's walk that back a little bit. Yeah. Okay. Sounds good.
Maybe get your CEO to take 5 minutes out of their dumb day and actually use it, or just don't pretend that you're on social media. How about that?
I get that. All these, the politicians, I don't know. Why is it like this?
Power and money.
Well, sometimes it's like that, but there was Bob Dole, and then there was Al Gore, and it's just there are other motivations there, and I don't get it.
Well, I don't understand what those two have in common.
They're a little bit naive, but they can still be manipulated to serve the.
You really think Al Gore doesn't know what he's doing?
I think Al Gore didn't realize what he was doing, and then when he put it together, he's like, "Well, I guess this is fine."
See, that you're part of the problem. You should be voting if you have that idea, because he is absolutely getting exactly what he wants from all of that, which is the slight shred of relevance that we gave him that we never should have, because he's an idiot. As is Bob Dole. And Mr. Ed Sheeran, I don't know if he's an idiot, but he should work harder on his security.
Ed Sheeran, the hacker who stole the singer's unreleased music, is jailed. Now, this event stems from 2019, and it finally is just wrapping up. They found the guy, they picked him up, and he's been sentenced to 18 months in jail.
How wild. So he got some of their unreleased music. How would you monetize that, do you think?
Why didn't he just destroy it and save us all a little bit of trouble?
I don't think they intended to monetize it. It was just...
You got something against Mr. Sheeran?
His music's aggressively fine.
I'm not familiar with much of his music.
You've probably heard it, and it's just fine.
I remember when he was on Game of Thrones for like 10 seconds, and I was like, are they going to make him a character? But no, they just...
It was literally just, to get teenage girls excited.
Are the teenage girls hot for him?
They were at one time. I don't know. Again, he's sort of aggressively fine. I don't know anyone who's like a major fan of his, but
Different ways to interpret that.
Weren't there episodes of Next Gen that were like that? Like there was a billionaire that had a cameo on an episode of Next Gen, and then there was somebody in season 1 that had a cameo that was some famous person.
they started doing that a lot with Game of Thrones toward the end.
Didn't Roddenberry make his mistress one of the characters in the original series?
She was the computer.
I thought there was a nurse or something.
Oh, Nurse Chapel, maybe.
Anyway,
You
this
don't
guy,
know?
this guy made. Well, he's the next gen trivia guy. This guy made 131,000 pounds from selling this leaked data. But I wonder, like, I wouldn't know who to sell it to.
I'm sure there's like Stan accounts for this guy.
Yeah. And Australia, of course, they had their big. I don't remember the telecom company that had the big leak that forced them to revamp the laws completely. But then, right on the tail of that,
Australia's Medibank says the data. Medibank.
It's medical.
Medibank. Oh, says that data of 4 million customers have been accessed by a hacker. Why? Because they don't have any security at all. None. Zero.
Oops.
Because it costs money to do good security when we could just not do good security and then have a very small, almost inconsequential fine.
More likely, they probably had a security team, and then it's like, what am I even paying you for? And they got rid of them, and then here we are.
Yeah, Twitter got rid of their team a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
This is great because look at this ad back here. Get a free Fitbit Flex so we can capture your data and lose it.
Oops.
Iran is still having some issues in their country. Now, certainly, Iran has some policies that if I live there, I would want to get in the streets about. To be fair, I want to get in the streets where I am now, but I know that there's no really change that will come from that. However, you also have to worry about the CIA, because in the past, they tend to foment these kinds of things. But anyway, the students, they rile up the students. They did that a while back to great advantages to the oil companies. And it's happening again.
Iran releases footage from prison fire, adding to mystery. Now,
This is some accidental renaissance in this photo.
It's not just the prison. This is not just any prison. This is the prison, right?
This is the political dissent prison.
Yeah, this is yeah. So, because we could see there was a huge fire and that made international news. And then they released this to try to assuage that. But now there's only more questions.
I think we know. I think we know what's happening over there. And Google is, they're getting more into the whole right to be forgotten thing. There are a lot of catches. I think the one that they're not telling about is, it's like, you can get this stuff removed if you're filthy rich. They don't say that, but I think that's probably the qualifier.
Google can now remove your identifying search results if they're the right kind. It's easier to ask Google to remove identifying results, but it's not guaranteed.
So when you make a search, you're going to have the little, the 3 dots. And in some cases, you can click on that and be like, hey, this is me and I don't like it.
I'm in this photo and I don't like it.
They claim if it's like revenge porn or something like that, it'll go fast track. Again, I think it'll be based on how famous and rich you are.
Yeah.
Ed Sheeran would like to remove references to his stolen music. Yes, sir, Mr. Sheeran, sir.
Can you not pronounce his name?
Sheeran.
Is it Sheeran?
Sheeran?
Oh, no, I don't know.
Sheeran?
It's not Sheeran. It's Sheeran, I think.
Sheeran.
You always say Iran, too. Iran and Sheeran.
Iran.
Iran. Yeah, a lot of people laugh with like, it's Iran. Okay.
But they put it in the comment where you can't understand.
Listen, I'm barely literate. I'm lucky that I'm as literate as I am.
We're Appalachian American here. Yeah. We can't be expected to pronounce things correctly.
And a lot of people cannot be expected to manage their passwords. Oh my goodness. My parents, I mean, my mom doesn't even have an online persona, but my dad struggles with this. And I wonder, could I ever adapt him to this?
No.
I might have to try.
Passkeys, Microsoft, Apple, and Google's password killer are finally here. It only took 50 years.
50. Maybe less than that.
Just a little, though. Like 45.
Basically, you use your devices as tokens. So you need a quorum of devices. It's like, I've got a new laptop. It's like, I don't know if I should permit your laptop. It's like, well, I got my phone. You're going to need another device. I guess my smart toaster can also vouch for me. And it's like, take the new laptop to the smart toaster.
Yeah.
Like, now we have a quorum of devices.
It feels a little silly at this point, but
Also, if you get robbed or your house burns down, I just
Lose
had to-
access to the phone.
I had to replace a credit card just because it had passed its expiration. They gave me a new card on the same account, and the path to do that on various websites is infuriating.
Oh yeah.
They have no good way to do that. That's ridiculous. I mean, it's got to come up a lot, right?
I had a credit card that expired, and the number on the new card was different. And I figured that I would just get the email and deal with it when the other card stopped working. And it took about 8 months before the old card to completely stop working.
This one, all the numbers the same. All that changed is the CVV and the expiration. I think it probably will work.
It might have just kept working because, I mean, like all the number was different, everything was different, but the old number and everything kept working even past the expiration date. I don't know what sort of magic that was.
That's some sort of collusion. That's some sort of like
Yeah.
Apple, Google
Yeah.
subscription thing that they're doing that's evil that we're going to find out about. And they're going to pay a $10 million fine for it.
Level 1 predicts.
But, all the companies are lining up. Here's just an example.
PayPal is getting a more secure passkey for logins that they can then use to deny you if somebody uses that to take money from you, probably.
Charge you $2,500 if you lose your phone.
Listen, it's impossible for somebody to have taken your PayPal because your account had passkey. It's like, you don't understand. They stole my toaster so they'd have a quorum. I'm sorry, sir. Those words are nonsense.
I think they should call this one Hunter Mode.
Samsung privacy protecting maintenance mode is coming to Galaxy S22 worldwide. What's maintenance mode? Put your phone in maintenance mode and it locks everything away that a technician doesn't need to replace parts inside the phone.
Like your nudes.
Like the backup image of Hunter Biden's laptop.
I don't think that would keep out that kind of situation, though.
Probably not.
Once you don't pick it up and it becomes theirs,
Well,
they will be able to extract.
The thing says that you have to go into the menu and actually turn on maintenance mode. Who would?
Certainly not a crackhead. And Square is doing a very disgusting thing. Now, we talked about earlier with the Facebook and Instagram and Meta, Meta's the same thing. They have the super profile. So it doesn't matter if you use different email addresses or different identities for those things. They will figure out that those identities go together, and then they will put them together in the ad platform and build the super profile. It turns out Square was doing the same thing with your financial stuff.
Square sells access to your inbox. No one seems to know if the law cares. So, H&R Block or Block Tax Service, they own that, and they're putting it together in super profile. And if marketing companies want to advertise to you, they can through the Square platform. And those emails are whitelisted.
So this guy figured out, he started getting spam in his work email. And he was like, I've never gone to any of these sites with my work email. I've never signed up for anything. What happened? Turned out Square somehow connected the dots on his work email and his private Square email. And it was like, we know you. Put them together and then started spamming both.
Again, talk about an egregious violation of the social contract so much that it might warrant the death penalty.
This story shows what, I don't know if they meant to do this, but I based on the supervillain strategies we've seen before,
Yeah.
I got to think that they did. This was the Bezos long game for the Ring doorbells.
Ooh.
Ring cameras are being used to control and surveil overworked delivery workers. Now, this what set this off was a dog chased a delivery worker or something. Is that right? They had customer note. Anyway, Amazon Ring, they can use Ring to verify that a delivery has taken place. And so if a customer says, we didn't get the delivery, they could look through your Ring footage, for example. This article is kind of light on details as to if they're actually doing that, but there was apparently a case of a dog that chased a delivery driver, and then they put a note in the thing rather than contact the customer, but they sort of verified what happened through the Ring footage.
But also, they talk about how the Amazon people are terrified they have to follow every little instruction because they're afraid if they don't, now you've got the video and you can go against the behind their back to Amazon. And of course, Amazon's going to fire them at the drop of a hat because that's how they treat their employees.
Don't be a snitch.
I saw a guy posted a video and his delivery driver gets out and he runs up and he hurdles over the sidewalk and runs up and tiptoes along a very narrow little path of bricks and drops the box off and then follows the exact same path back. And the guy, after he monitors the footage, he's cracking up and he goes out and he gets the sign out of his front lawn, which it says, it's a parody sign that says, "Please keep on grass." And the Amazon driver stayed on the grass the entire time because they're terrified, right?
Wow.
They'll do whatever you tell them to do because they're afraid that you're going to rat them out with these videos.
Poor guy.
He should get a bonus for that.
Yeah.
He won't though.
No.
Not even a little.
He won't even get an extra pee jug.
An Amazon Basics pee jug.
You've performed your Amazon duties so well, you get an extra 5-minute pee break one time to use whenever.
Oh.
Get out of bladder free card. And finally, we have a new bug on iOS that has been fixed now, but was terrible.
Siri Spy iOS bug allowed apps to eavesdrop on your Siri conversations before the fix.
I'm sure it's fixed and that they haven't just left it in.
I thought this is just an application can get at your Siri stuff when you call Siri to do something. I thought this was something else though. There was a couple of credible reports about after the last update, people were watching anime or something, and one of the characters in that was suicidal, and Siri thought that it was overhearing a suicidal conversation and
God.
came up with a whole bunch of stuff, and maybe it was that. Because it was listening when it wasn't supposed to be.
If it ever heard any of my conversations with telemarketers, it would get triggered for that. But so the thing about this is, if any app on your phone had Bluetooth permissions for the headphones, then it could listen to any Siri conversation because that was going over a channel that all the apps had access to.
Oof.
And I'm sure no one would ever spy on that.
No, never. Anyway, that's it.
See you Friday.